actually wanted to add some context to what this ship is about, because last year in March of 2006 a ship the same size came here and loaded up 300 Stryker vehicles for the 3rd Brigade 2nd Infantry Division. And when it came back, pretty much everyone from the 3rd Brigade has returned except for 48 soldiers who didn't return. I wanted to give you a couple of their stories. First, I want to tell you about Corporal Juan Alcantara, who was 22 years old. Juan Alcantara was born in the Dominican Republic. He moved to New York when he was a child. After high school, he held a job at a pool hall. And against the advice of his friends and family, he enlisted in the Army because he felt he could earn money for college that way. The recruiter told him he wouldn't be sent to Iraq. Well, he was sent to Iraq by way of Olympia. While Juan was in Iraq, his fiancée was expecting to give birth to his daughter. If things had gone originally as planned, he would have been home in time to see the birth of his first child. But instead, his stay in Iraq was extended by 3 months as part of George Bush's troop surge. Now, Juan had asked the Army over and over to let him return to New York to see the birth of his daughter, but the Army refused. And so his daughter, Jaylani, was born on June 29th of this year. And while Juan was still in Iraq, 1 month later, he and 5 of his colleagues became the last soldiers from the 3rd Stryker Brigade to be killed in Iraq. After his death, Juan's mother said this. She said, "Because of Bush's persistence in taking over Iraq, my son is dead. This is a war that has no meaning. The war is never going to end, and it can't be won. They should enlist Bush's family." So that was his mother. This is what his fiancée had to say. She said, "I hate Bush, and I hate this war because if it wasn't for him, Juan would be here with me. People are losing families for no reason." Now at Juan's funeral, one of his cousins faced the line of soldiers who stood at attention. This was at his funeral, and his cousin said the following: "All I've got to say is fuck Bush." And later the cousin added, "He died for nothing. For oil, for nothing." Now that was Juan Alcantara with the 3rd Stryker Brigade that left by way of Olympia here last year in March of 2006 when we tried to stop that brigade from leaving. And they insisted, and the port insisted, and the port was working with Fort Lewis, port was working with the military, and 48 soldiers are dead, and who the hell knows how many Iraqis are dead because of that. And then people criticize us for protesting. I want to tell you about another soldier from the 3rd Brigade. This is Staff Sergeant Daryl Griffin. He was a bit older. He was 36 years old. He didn't consider himself pro-war or anti-war. He was a self-styled philosopher and a proud career soldier who just wanted to do his job right. It was his 2nd tour in Iraq. He wrote a lot and kept journals. One of his journal writings concerned something that happened on March 5th of this year. This happened while he was raiding the house of an innocent civilian family. And this is what he wrote. "I noticed the mother attempting to breastfeed her little baby, and yet the baby continued to cry. Our interpreter, who is a certified and well-educated doctor, told me that the mother, because she was very frightened by our presence, was not able to breastfeed her baby because the glands in the breast close up due to sympathetic responses to fear and stressful situations. I then tried to reassure the mother by allowing her to leave the room and attain some privacy so that she could relax and feed her child. I felt something that had been brooding under the attained callousness of my heart for some time. My heart finally broke for the Iraqi people. I wanted to just sit down and cry while saying I'm so sorry for what we had done. I had the acute sense that we had failed these people. It was at this time, and after an entire year of being deployed, and well into the next deployment, that I realized something. We burst into homes, frighten the hell out of families, and destroy their homes looking for an elusive enemy. We do this out of fear of the unseen and attempt to compensate for our inability to capture insurgents by swatting mosquitoes with a sledgehammer in glass houses. That's what he wrote. And 2.5 weeks later, Sgt Griffin was standing in the hatch of his striker vehicle, one of those striker vehicles that are being unloaded. He stood in the hatch of his striker vehicle on patrol in Sutter City, and he was shot and killed. Now those are two stories of soldiers. Sometimes you can find MySpace pages still left over from some of these soldiers. I found a MySpace page for another soldier from the 3rd Brigade. I believe the address was I Hate Iraq 1. He called Iraq the biggest shithole in the whole entire world. And he didn't just hate Iraq. On his MySpace page, he mentioned how much he hated George Bush and how much he hated the Army. He had a counter on his MySpace page that counted down the number of days before he could leave the Army. When he was killed, the countdown on his MySpace page was at 1 year and 4 months. There's more stories, but there's even more stories of Iraqis. And yet, we don't have that information. I don't have their names. I don't have their MySpace pages. It's not printed. Their stories aren't printed on the front page of newspapers. And yet, they had families too. They had parents, brothers, sisters, children, people who loved them, people who cared about them. And they're no longer here. And we never knew they existed. So when people criticize what we do, we do this for a reason. We don't do this for kicks. We don't do this because we don't have nothing better to do. I wish there was other stuff I could do, but this is important. And when we go to the fort, people want us to act all civil. They talk about civility, that there's a right way to protest and a wrong way to protest. And I want you to know that there is no civility right now anyway. There is no civility because there's no civility going on in Iraq. The same people who want us to behave here don't tell people to behave over there. Now, I have a confession. I've never stopped a war before. I don't know how it's done. But that's not a reason not to try, because the stakes are too high. And besides, I'm not doing it by myself. You all are here. And there's others like us. Now, about people who criticize our tactics, I think there's two types of people who criticize our tactics. There's those who support the war and occupation, and then try to tell us how to wage our struggle. The fact that they are already opposed to the struggle means they have no authority to tell us how to oppose them. Now, the other people are the people who ostensibly agree with us, but they poo-poo our actions. Now, again, I personally never stopped a war before, so if someone has a better idea, don't just tell us what to do, show us how it's done, because we need you. So I'm glad you all are here. This is an event sponsored by the Port Militarization Resistance. We have a mission statement. We abide by these rules of nonviolence, and that's as civil as we get. And I think that's enough. And we have a lot to do. And we have a lot of ways to do it. So let's explore those ways. We can't give up, because it's not just about us. It's not about our lives or whatever we can do. It's also about the lives that are being shipped over there, and the lives of the people who used to live there but are either dead or are refugees. There's so much going on. And I want to say that's also, personally, I am a refugee, right? I'm a refugee from a previous war, so I take it personally too. So when people say I don't have a stake in it, or whatever, that's bullshit. I was born in a war. So I think we all need to recognize that we have stakes in this, and that we do need to take this personally. Nobody can tell us what to do. We've got a job to do, and we're going to get it done. Thank you.